Ever wondered who the very first movie star was? Well, today we're going to talk about her. Her name was Florence Lawrence, and she was the very first named actress in films, mobbed wherever she went, but her story ends very tragically. Let's take a look. Hi, everyone, and Happy New Year. Let's start the week off right by wishing everybody a healthy and prosperous coming year in 2026. Hoping things will get better for everybody. Seems that there was a lot of struggle and things going on that weren't so great in 2025, including with me. I had an eye thing and got diagnosed with something else. It's always fun getting older. Anyway, let's just hope for better things in 2026. This week, we are going to profile an actress, a star, that most people have no idea who she is. But here's something that might grab your attention. She was considered the very first named movie star. The very first movie star. Her name is Florence Lawrence. So before we talk about her, and by the way, she is in my first book, Florence Lawrence. Before we talk about her, please do everything. The like, the subscribe, the comments. Just comment. Watch the videos. I need the watch hours because my New Year's resolution in 2026 is to get monetized. So let's try and make that happen. Also, I wanted to let you guys know that I'm going to be starting another YouTube channel based on another passion of mine. My first love is old Hollywood and Hollywood movies and things like that. But I have a second passion, and that passion is fashion. Passion is fashion. And I am going to be starting a new channel based off of my love of fashion and sort of like talking about how to dress and what to do, what not to do as far as I'm concerned. And I've been studying fashion for probably 50 years. So I kind of know what I'm talking about. So anyway, if you want to check that out, I'll list a link in the description of this video for my fashion page. All right, now let's talk about Florence Lawrence. She was known as the Biograph Girl. So back in the early days, when people were making pictures, we're talking 1915, around there, usually people didn't even get credited with their own name on the picture. There wasn't any such thing as star billing or, people understanding and knowing that this star in this movie was actually a real person named so-and-so. They didn't really have that back then. And I'm sure that the studios would have been very content to keep it that way because once the star thing happened and people began being recognized for who they were, not just for the characters they played. The studios had to start paying them more to be in their pictures because they wanted to get a named star in their pictures, and they had to start paying them more. And then studios don't like that. She was born in Canada, actually, Bridgewood in Hamilton, Ontario, in 1886, I believe. And she immigrated to Hollywood. She was pretty enough that she immigrated to Hollywood to try her luck at acting. So let's read a little bit from my book about her early years. Florence had been toiling away in subpar real-life affairs for a studio known as the Videograph Company when she was noticed by a young actor named Henry Salter in 1908. He introduced her to D.W. Griffith of Biograph Pictures, and if you don't know, D.W. Griffith was one of the biggest film directors of all time during the silent era. He was really huge. And she signed with Biograph Pictures. And then they started putting her in more prominent roles. And she also married Salter at that time. So she went on to make 60, count them, 60 films for that studio. Most of them directed by Griffith himself. And These were early 20th century filmmakings, however, and studios had made the unbelievable decision not to credit actors on the screen as they felt this would create celebrities, and they were right, out of mere performers, leading them to demand higher salaries. Oh, the studios. Gotta admire them for trying. They really tried to keep a lid on that. Anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and read the rest of this. It's in my book, Tragic Hollywood, Beautiful, Glamorous, and Dead, which I don't happen to have right next to me right now, but it's the red cover, and she's featured prominently in a chapter in that book. Florence became extremely popular, wonder why, but was simply known as the Biograph Girl. Still, she was compensated well and seemed content until a little German studio boss approached her with a wild scheme and an offer she simply couldn't refuse. Carl LeMay was the head of Independent Motion Picture Company of America, or IPM for short. To lure Lawrence away from Biograph, he offered her and Salter the leads in his next film, The Broken Oath. And the couple jumped at the chance. But LeMay had one condition. He was going to stage the first publicity stunt. This gets even more interesting. While the film was still in production, LeMay sent out a fake notice saying that Lawrence had been killed in a streetcar accident. It's a little more than a publicity stunt. That's like flat out lying. Okay. The press lapped it up. The Biograph Girl dead, screamed the headlines, affording the film gobs of free publicity and significantly increasing Florence Lawrence's profile. A few days later, LeMay sent out a press release stating, We nail a lie, refuting the scandalous claim and quoting Lawrence as saying she was very much alive and would soon be making a public appearance to promote her new film, The Broken Oath. This was sort of genius because he pretended like he wasn't the originator of this lie, and then he put out a, how dare they lie about my star? She's alive and well, and she's going to appear at a press conference in short order to prove this dastardly lie wrong. So this was kind of genius. So when Lawrence and Salter appeared together in St. Louis, Missouri, a near riot ensued, assuring the film's success and guaranteeing that Florence would go down in history as the first film actress to achieve name recognition with the public. In other words, she was really the first star. So, yes, she was the first star, Florence Lawrence. So she was super popular during her time at independent American films, and she was mobbed. She was the first, actor to be mobbed by fans wherever she went. And this was a new thing. Like, usually this didn't happen. She was also rumored to be the inventor of the first car turn signal. So you thought Hedy Lamarr was all that. Florence Lawrence was no dummy either. And there's another little hobby she had. She raced cars competitively. So take that, Paul Newman. Yeah, she raced cars. This was a woman. This is in the 1920s. That was very unusual. It was rumored that she got so much fan mail that her postman suffered a nervous breakdown trying to lug all these letters to her door on a daily basis. I wonder what he'd do if he was an Amazon guy now, and all these people that willy-nilly order 10 packages from Amazon every day and expect, next day delivery. Yeah. So her and her husband were doing really great. And, but they kind of got a little bit cocky, and they decided that they were going to form their own production company called Victor Film Company. And they made some successful films with this. But just 2 years in, Lawrence announced her intention to retire. But she was persuaded to make Pawn's Destiny for Universal, who had acquired Victor Film Company in 1914. So I guess their film company was successful enough that they sold it to Universal. She was severely injured during this filming when a fire got out of control, burning her and causing her to fall, injuring her back. Fires were not that unheard of at this time on the set. There was an actress, she's in my first book, and her name escapes me, but she died in a horrific on-set fire when her dress that was extremely flammable. She was making like a Western, and she had this big dress with a huge hoop skirt, and her dress caught fire, and she was burned to death right there on the set. It was horrible. This wasn't that unusual. These sets were not exactly, Ocean wouldn't go for these sets these days. So she was incapacitated. I'm going to read this part from my book. She was incapacitated for months, and when she did return to the set, she suffered a mental collapse. Several months later, the press was waiting for her when she pulled into the Universal lot in a massive luxury automobile, looking frail and depleted, to begin her comeback. She smiled and charmed her way through the interview and left them all with the impression that the movie business was a wonderful thing, as long as stars like Florence Lawrence were around. So I guess she had a little bit of a little comeback then. Sadly, Florence Lawrence's glory days were behind her, and she began a slow and painful decline. She divorced Salter after her accident on the set, blaming him for making her perform her own stunts. After her 2 nervous breakdowns, she never regained the leading lady stature she once enjoyed. By the mid-1920s, she was hardly working at all. And when the stock market collapsed in 1929, she was wiped out financially. That same year, her beloved mother passed away, causing Florence to lapse further into despair. Despite her limited finances, she paid for an elaborate burial for her mother, including a large sculpted bust to be placed on her tomb. In 1933, she married Harry Bolton, a drunk who beat her for the 5-month duration of the marriage. By this time, she was suffering from a painful bone marrow disorder called myelofibrosis. On the eve of December 27, 1938, she carefully surrounded herself with mementos of her former life as a star as she lay down in great pain. Then she swallowed something called ant paste, which we have today, but we don't call it ant paste. But I have a feeling this shit might have been really potent. Like, they used to sell arsenic all over the place, over the counter to kill rats. So I don't know what was in this, but it was really bad. She was discovered the following day, still alive, if you can believe that, and in agony. She was rushed to the hospital, but died that afternoon. So, R.I.P. to Florence Lawrence. I'm going to read the final paragraph. Florence's real death garnered little publicity in stark contrast to her fake death just years before. And she was buried in an unmarked grave just 1,000 yards from the elaborate tomb of her mother at Hollywood Forever. Why didn't they just put her in the same tomb with her mother? What's wrong with these people? Decades later, Roddy McDowell, then serving as the National Film Preservation Board, paid for the current marker and engraving, which finally restores some measure of recognition and dignity to this long-forgotten woman, Florence Lawrence, the screen's first movie star. She was only 52 when she died in 1938, December 28th. So that's the sad story of poor Florence Lawrence. Thank you, and we'll see you next week. Do all the things. Like, subscribe, and leave a comment, and please at least just watch the video. That'd be great. All right, thank you, and Happy New Year.